It was one of those softly muted Thursdays, the kind that passes quietly between the chaos of midweek and the promise of the weekend. The sunlight was unhurried that day, filtering through the blinds in thin golden ribbons that stretched lazily across the living room floor. The air smelled faintly of chamomile and old books, the kind of scent that makes silence feel comfortable. I was curled into the corner of our worn gray sofa, my knees drawn up beneath a throw blanket, my hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea. My thoughts drifted without direction, neither happy nor heavy, just adrift, until my phone buzzed on the coffee table. The screen lit up with my husband's name. "Hey, love," David's message read. "Running late again. Big client meeting." It wasn't unusual. His job often swallowed the evenings whole, leaving me to my own company and the slow companionship of the house. Still, that evening, a peculiar restlessness hummed in me. Not worry, exactly, but a faint, inexplicable stirring. Something in the quiet air felt offbeat, like a melody that couldn't quite find its rhythm. Around 8, a knock broke the stillness. Soft, deliberate. I wasn't expecting anyone. My steps to the door echoed lightly against the wooden floor. When I opened it, I found Mark, one of David's colleagues, standing there, hands tucked into the pockets of his coat. "Hi," he said, his tone uncertain but kind. "I hope I'm not intruding. I was nearby after work, and honestly, I just needed a place to clear my head before heading home. I thought maybe—" His voice trailed off, hesitant, apologetic. I offered a gentle smile. "Of course. Come in. It's cold out there." Mark stepped inside, glancing around like he wasn't sure he should stay. Our living room wasn't large, but it held warmth in its dim lighting and soft textures, the scent of lavender candles still lingering in the air. I motioned for him to sit, and he settled on the couch across from mine, his shoulders stiff at first, his hands clasped. What began as polite small talk about the office slowly unraveled into something real. He spoke about work deadlines, small frustrations, and the odd humor of office politics. His wit was dry, understated, the kind that sneaks up and makes you laugh before you even realize it. Soon I found myself laughing more freely than I had in days. The tension in the room eased, the air softening into something unspoken but understood. As the hour grew late, our conversation quieted. The tone changed. It wasn't just chatter anymore, it was confessional, tender in its honesty. Mark's eyes, usually sharp and distant at work events, seemed gentler now. He spoke about feeling invisible sometimes, about chasing expectations that left little room for meaning. His voice trembled slightly, not with fear, but with the vulnerability of being open. "It's rare," he murmured, "to talk to someone who actually listens. Not just hears, but really listens." His words lingered in the air, fragile and true. Something inside me shifted. Not attraction, not longing, but recognition. That rare human resonance when two people, almost by accident, align in emotional frequency. I could feel the warmth of the moment, the faint hum of the heater, the rhythm of shared breathing, the soft lamplight wrapping around us like an invisible blanket. When David called an hour later to say he'd be home late, Mark stood adjusting his coat. "I should get going," he said softly, then paused at the door. "Thank you for this." I didn't realize how much I needed a conversation like that until now. I smiled, my throat tight. "Anytime, Mark." After the door closed, the silence felt heavier than before. Not lonely, just full, as if the house itself had absorbed the evening. I sat back down, tea long gone cold, and let the echoes of the night settle. I didn't know it then, but something subtle had changed in me. The next morning, I went about my routine, but everything carried a faint echo of the night before. The way Mark had spoken, the quiet courage in his honesty, it replayed in my mind, uninvited but not unwelcome. At David's office dinner the next week, I noticed Mark across the room. He was quieter than usual, his laughter softer, his glances more thoughtful. When our eyes met, there was a fleeting acknowledgement, not guilt, not tension, just understanding. That Friday evening, David texted again, "Running late, sorry." The message blinked on the screen, routine now. Not long after, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Mark stood there once more, holding a small notebook. I realized I borrowed this from you the other night, he said. His smile was hesitant, but his eyes held that same depth I remembered. Come in, I said without thinking. This time, the conversation picked up where it had left off, deeper, quieter, more introspective. Mark spoke about his struggles, to find meaning in what he did, about the loneliness that comes from always appearing composed. I listened. I really listened. And somewhere between his words and the silences between them, I felt an invisible thread connecting us. Delicate, unspoken, but undeniable. I don't know why, he said after a pause. But I feel like I can tell you things I've never told anyone. His confession wasn't heavy. It was freeing, the kind of honesty that strips away pretense. And I found myself saying softly, maybe that's what we're all looking for. Someone who doesn't need explanations. He smiled, and it wasn't the kind you give out of politeness. It was the kind that says thank you without words. When he left that evening, he said, "You make the world a little quieter, a little easier to be in." After he was gone, I realized how extraordinary simple connection could be. Not romantic, not forbidden, but profoundly human. Days turned into weeks. Life returned to its usual rhythm. The clink of dishes in the sink, the hum of David's late-night phone calls from the office, the steady predictability of ordinary days. Yet underneath that routine, something within me had shifted. I noticed things I hadn't before, the way sunlight pooled golden on the rug, the sound of rain tapping softly against the windows, the pulse of stillness in the evenings. One night, just as the sky began to turn from blue to indigo, my phone buzzed again. Mark. He wanted to stop by. Just to talk, he said. When he arrived, the air between us felt different, lighter, yet charged with a quiet sincerity. We sat across from each other, the soft glow of the lamp tracing shadows on the walls. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he began. I've been thinking about everything. The talks, the silence, the way you listen. I think I've been holding back from life in ways I didn't realize. I've been afraid of being known, even by myself. His voice trembled with rawness, but his words were steady. I value you, he continued. Not because of anything you do, but because when I talk to you, I feel seen. I don't think I've felt that in a long time. I swallowed, emotion rising like a tide. Sometimes, I said softly, we meet people not to change our lives, but to remind us that we still have one. He exhaled, and the sound was almost a sigh of relief. When he left that night, the air felt lighter. The connection wasn't tethered to desire. It existed in honesty, empathy, and the simple beauty of being understood. Weeks later, I found myself sitting on the porch, the sun sinking into the horizon in slow motion. The world around me was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned. David joined me, 2 mugs of tea in hand, his tired eyes softening in the golden light. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. The years we'd shared spoke for themselves. The trust, the patience, the unspoken comfort that comes only from time. I looked at him and felt a deep, abiding gratitude. And yet, somewhere within, that gratitude was an awareness that connection takes many forms. It can be a lifelong partnership or a fleeting conversation that leaves a lasting mark. It doesn't have to threaten love to matter. Sometimes it strengthens it. I thought of Mark, not with longing, but with quiet appreciation. Our paths had crossed at a moment when both our souls needed to be reminded of something essential, that to be seen, to be heard, is one of life's purest gifts. That realization stayed with me. It deepened the way I looked at others, the way I spoke, the way I listened. I carried it like a soft secret, a reminder of the invisible threads that connect us all. That Thursday, that ordinary, sun-dappled day that had started with nothing remarkable, had become a turning point. Not because of anything dramatic, but because it revealed how extraordinary simplicity could be when met with sincerity. As the stars began to appear one by one above us, I felt an almost childlike wonder at how quietly life can change. The heart, I realized doesn't need grand gestures to grow, just truth, shared gently between two people who dare to listen. And that understanding, tender and human, was enough to fill the silence with meaning.